Okay, up next, we have a crucial discussion of the future of finance. Can DeFi and TradFi ever speak the same language? Please welcome Lawrence Houston, co-founder and CTO of AdLunam Inc, who brings decades of experience bridging finance and technology. His talk, Bridging the Gap Between DeFi and TradFi. Lawrence, the stage is yours, and welcome.
Hello, how are y'all? Um, so this is a topic that I love to talk about because it's the whole purpose of blockchain. There is no other purpose except to be able to hold an asset. It doesn't make any sense to use it for anything else. But a little bit about me. Um, so I'm a computer scientist and a economist at the same time. And I was studying AI in the 80s, um, and and then went on to work in some different capacities for uh, uh, for the new protocols that were coming out. So I was a protocol developer, um, and so this at the end of the day is a story of two protocols that changed the world. The first one is TCP/IP, Transmission Control Protocol and Internet Protocol, and the other is blockchain. So basically, the before we had TCP/IP, there was an internet, and what it did was it went around the world every night and dumped down onto your computer the portions that you subscribed to, and would keep going around the world. Is as archaic as that seems, it was super powerful because I mean, we would be working on esoteric problems. We would post them to what we call news groups, and then the next day, someone would read them because it would pick it up at night and download it. And I was having just to give an example, I was having a really uh, problem with an esoteric property of the TCP/IP protocol that no one in the world that I thought could possibly know how to fix it or how to deal with it. And so I put a message out there. The internet picked it up during the day, put it back out onto the internet, downloaded it, and then of course it took 2 days to get a reply back because they'd have to pick it back up once the guy uploaded it that night. And some guy had the exact answer to the problem. I put it in, it worked perfectly, and I was just curious of who he was. So I wrote him an email and said, "Who are you?" And it turned out he was a, a obstetrician in Namibia, Africa, and he told me he delivered 30 babies a day, and but he worked on the internet as it was at that time in his spare time, which I don't know how, if you're delivering 30 babies a day, you had time to work on the internet. But that was back in the day where we were throwing the wires over the walls during the Cold War, which is what part of what brought down the wall in Berlin. And it was all, but it was wire to wire. So what TCP/IP did was open up the internet to normal people. So we were scientists using it, but I was on a research project in New York for IBM in between a couple of different projects, and I saw Andreessen's browser pop up. Tim Berners-Lee had already invented the hyperlink protocol, so that was there, but there was really no practical way to click on something and go. And then Andreessen, obviously, everybody should know in this world who he is. Uh, did the first browser. Okay, it was called Mosaic, and I downloaded it just as part of my daily routine. And I clicked on it, and I'll never forget. It was in 1992, 93, and I picked up the phone. I called my wife, and I said, Yeah, the world just changed. Normal people can use this now. So what happened was that began the process of the last 30 years, which was the process of converting analog information to digital. So for 30 years, that's what we have been doing up until the blockchain protocol in 2009. We've been converting all of it. And that's why you can send a song to a billion people with an incremental cost of electricity. That's why one of the things that I did was build the first travel website, which we called Travelocity at the time. It didn't scale very well internationally because of the name. Had some different meanings in some different languages, but we ended up selling out to Expedia. So you may know it as Expedia, but we March the 11th of 1996, there was only two ways to buy travel. One is you called a travel agent. The second is you call the airline or the hotel directly to book your travel. March the 12th of 1996, when we launched Travelocity, so we had there was 15 million internet users in the United States at the time. And so 15 million people could buy travel on the internet. And 99% of the travel agencies in the United States went out of business. So that's what happened during the last 30 years. Um, to the asset impact of it was that 99% of the there's an index in the United States. I don't know how many people are from the United States, called the S&P 500. You probably should have heard of it. It's the top 500 companies in the world, and they're ranked by their returns. So for the last years, 99% of the returns on the S&P 500 have been from this magnificent seven companies that were involved in the digital transformation of information. Microsoft, Google, Amazon, all of these companies involved in that. So that's really the impact of it. And that created an economic energy, excuse me. And then in 2009, there was a new protocol that came out called blockchain, however you want to say it. And so it was running along there under the radar where people were, spending 10,000 Bitcoins to buy two pizzas. And basically nobody was paying any attention, and neither was I. In fact, I had friends of mine buying it, and I was telling them, I'm a computer scientist, dude, don't buy that. That's a Ponzi scheme. And I went serendipitously to a conference in Slovenia, in Marlborough, Slovenia, up near the Austrian border, and it's a ski resort in the middle of nowhere. People from all over the world were there. Turned out it was a blockchain conference, and I'm like, wow, I better look into this. So this was 2018, and that's when I began working in the blockchain world. And so what we have now is not the conversion of information from analog to digital. We have the conversion of analog capital to digital. So that's what blockchain's about. It's about assets. There's $900 trillion worth of analog assets in the world. If you look at the market cap of crypto, you'll see that about 0.1% of that has been converted to digital, the blockchain. So it's not really a matter of TradFi fitting into blockchain. All of those assets are going to be converted to the blockchain. And so the value of that is orders of magnitude more valuable than the last 30 years that we spent creating companies that were 99% of the S&P 500, that some of them, Microsoft and others, are more powerful than nation states. So now here we go. We're embarking on this new journey. And I like to think of it as like when we first did the internet and everybody was trying to think of something to do with the internet. What are you going to do? What are you going to sell? Um, and just to kind of give you perspective, this is how it was the Wild West. It was, the dot-com bust, boom and bust, where we had just to give you, we had a tech company that was pets.com. So they got that domain. Everybody's buying domains. And they were going to change the world by selling pet food on the internet. Of course, that sounds ridiculous today, but they were renting commercials during the Super Bowl, which is the most expensive commercials in the world. I think at that time it was for 60 seconds was up, $4 or $5 million for 60 seconds to have a commercial to tell you about buying pet food on the internet. So that's kind of where we're at with blockchain right now. It's like it's very confusing what it's for, but to be real clear, it's only about the conversion of analog capital assets to digital assets. Okay, so that right there, the $900 trillion of real estate, art, money, M2 money, all of these things are being transformed, but only 0.1% has been transformed so far. So it's not really about blockchain assets fitting into TradFi. No. TradFi is going to be changing into blockchain assets. So what's also important, and we've all heard about real estate tokenization, RWA, that's what it is. So the problem is, and why Bitcoin was the only asset that was created and now become a digital asset. Okay, the others are digital, but they're usually assets that are just made up, like an NFT. You make that up. A token for a company to make that up, and which is all of those things are securities because they have an issuer. But Bitcoin was the first one, and so one of the reasons Bitcoin was able to do what it did, and it's still continue to do it, and it's going to keep going, is that there was a market for it, and you were able to trade these assets on the market. And that's where, with all of these other real world assets, there's really no markets. So they're over the counter markets within their little subdomain. So if you've got a real estate tokenization company, you can have an over the counter market. If you've got a gemstone real world asset, you might have your own little market. And we saw the same problem with NFTs, OpenSea, Rarified. So those assets didn't trade correctly on the big exchanges like Binance or Kraken or those kind of things. So the willingness of the market to invest in these marketplaces that's going to make this happen have been delayed because of regulatory issues. But now with Paul Atkins as the head of the SEC in the United States, he has already started to lean towards all token things are no longer under the same regulations as securities, even though they are securities. So in other words, you can issue a token and you can sell it in America, you can sell it in somewhere else. So as you see, like stocks trading on the internet, as you see all of these things, the markets start to develop. $900 trillion of assets are going to come into this space. They're going to be traded 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, millions of transactions a second. And we're now witnessing the new revolution that's going to dwarf the last 30 years of converting information to digital assets. And now it's about converting capital, analog capital, to digital capital via the blockchain. So that's the end of my speech.
All right. Well, thank you, Lawrence. That was a very insightful look from your perspective. And we've got some questions from chat. I will be presenting them on screen one by one.
Okay.
This is the long one. Yeah. Based on your presentation.
Yeah. So, good question. The the to me, the greatest barrier is markets. Markets are what made Bitcoin. Okay, it would have been useless to buy Bitcoin without a market, right? I mean, yeah, you can buy pizza with it because the guy took it for pizza, but we need markets. Like, we need markets that handle real estate. We also need decentralized exchanges that handle these things like this. So the biggest our biggest if I was going to be working in any area right now in blockchain, which is what I do, I'm going to be working tokenizing things, right? So diamonds, real estate, art, all of these things. And there's legal issues behind that you really don't have with Bitcoin. But then I want to be able to trade it on a market. As my real estate goes up, I want to be able to trade it on an open market, not OTC, not over the counter, behind the scenes, which you really don't understand the value. Over the counter trades do not reflect the value of the asset. So, I mean, they're done in the background, by people that 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 are wanting to do it that way. So for you and I, for normal people, we want to be able to trade it. So that's all of those. I think working together, the development of these markets and the tokenization of these things. For example, stocks. All tokens when you. I'm involved with AdLunam right now, which I forgot to mention. Sorry, but we take companies public in the crypto space, but we're not necessarily limited to the crypto space because all tokens are represent is, and they should anyway, is the ownership of a company. Just like stock represents ownership of a company with different privileges, dividends, different whatever. And so you want to be able to trade that. So I want to buy my kid a new car, and I want to sell my part of the Empire State Building. I want to go on the market, know what the spot price is, and trade it and get some money and buy my kid a new car. So, but those things are developing, and I mean, that's the useful area of blockchain. So I hope that answers your question.
Before we dive into the next question, there's the one from me. You mentioned the massive opportunity in transferring 900 trillion of analog capital to digital.
Yeah.
Could you elaborate, like, I mean, in let's say bullet points, shortly on the biggest hurdles preventing TradFi institutions from fully embracing this shift?
Well, I mean, first of all, it was something new, right?
Of
So,
course.
so I can't think of a good example, but I mean, well, I'll give you. Here's a great example. When we launched Travelocity, which was the travel site that we built, the first one ever. Interestingly enough, one of our main problems was getting people to put credit cards on the internet. Like they didn't want to do it. They didn't understand it. So we had to launch a campaign with Citibank to tell people and show them the cryptography behind them putting their credit card into the internet and causing it to happen. So it was new, right? It took a wall, right? I mean, for people to do their banking on the internet, it took a wall, right? So all of these things. So that's number one. It's new. It's and you got people like Warren Buffett, who says, one of the greatest investors of all times, who says it's rat poison, or Jamie Dimon, who says, oh, guess what? there's going to be the final Bitcoin is going to be mined, and there's going to be a picture of Satoshi Nakamoto come up on the screen and go, ha ha ha, I'm going to create more Bitcoin, right? So, and so you have that, and then that's just one thing, and that's going to be overcome obviously with just these people don't want to take the time to understand it. They don't have to. If you're Warren Buffett or you're Jamie Dimon, you don't need to understand it. Like, what would be the purpose, right? To buy another 20 helicopters? So whatever. But so it's like like my dad wouldn't touch a computer, right? It's like I don't that thing would it'll break or something if I touch it. So that's one thing, and then but the parts that we need to be working on and building up is the tokenizations of these assets. So platforms to tokenize real estate, and there already are. Don't get me wrong, but or gemstones, which are different because they're not fungible, right? Um, uh, all of these assets, whether they're fungible, non-fungible, we need platforms to tokenize them, and also the correct um, uh, uh, chains for them to be running on, because some of these chains are not secure, right? They're just somebody's imagination of how they can create a consensus protocol out of thin air, and they're just not secure. So, I mean, if you look at BlackRock now, their real world asset tokenization is running on Ethereum, right? So where else would you do it? You can't do it on the Bitcoin network right now, but and so that's one. And I think one of the most important parts is the marketplaces. So if I buy this token of a Picasso, right, a third of a Picasso, excuse me, a 100,000th of a Picasso, and I got it, and it's worth this much. And on the market, I can see on the spot market that it goes up double. I'm ready to sell, right? So I punch in and I'm gonna sell. That doesn't exist right now. So those are the things I think need to happen, and that we should all be working on in this instead of some of the things that I see. I see hundreds of projects every couple of months, and I mean, like I said, it was like pet food, selling pet food on the internet, in you know. So,
Yeah.
but anyway, yeah. So that's the answer to my question. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I completely agree. Market dynamics are ultimately the driving force, and yeah, thank you for emphasizing that. And appreciate the insights. Thank you. Here goes the another question.
Okay. Okay. So yeah. So well, I forgot to mention. So what we're looking at is a basically a worldwide capital system, which is digital, right? So it's like you sending a song to a billion people with an incremental cost of electricity. The barrier for somebody in Nigeria, besides possible regulations, which doesn't seem to bother them, uh, whatever they do, they don't even mind doing it on the black market. But once all of our securities, which is the stock market, right? The Nasdaq, the S&P 500, the German stock market, um, once all of those are tokenized, you'll be able to buy those stocks anywhere in the world, and you'll be able to self-custody them. Self-custody, that's not the right word. Maintain your own custodianship of your own stock. Right now, if you buy a stock, that's part of the problem for a guy in Nigeria. He's going to buy a share of Apple. He's not. He's not custodian that share. It's the broker has custodianship. So once all that's democratized, it would be like him. It would be like the Nigerian guy going on and buying a stable coin, USDT, or a Bitcoin. uh, it's just transparent to him, right? It crosses borders. There's no borders about it. It's a global capital financial system that we're going to be building for the next however many years. I don't know how many years it's going to take, but I, I would assume that it's going to move pretty fast. So that's my answer to that question.
All right. I think we ran out of the questions, and it's
Okay.
almost the time. Thank you, Lawrence, for sharing such valuable insights with us today. We truly appreciate your expertise and perspective. We would be delighted to collaborate with you furthermore, and welcome back to our stage again soon. We have many interesting things coming up, and your vision is exactly something kind of thinking that moves this industry forward, and we would be happy to collaborate with you on that. Now,
For
uh,
for sure.
you you have a great one, Lawrence. Amazing having you here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.